The war was over. The sky was gray with smoke. Broken ships and burning machines lay across the dry desert ground. The air was silent, except for the sound of metal cracking in the wind. Corporal James Walker, a young human soldier, walked slowly through the wreckage. His armor was scratched and his face was tired. He had seen too much death. His team had left hours ago, but something made him stay. Something felt wrong. He stepped over the remains of a crashed alien transport. It was one of the enemy ships, but now it was just a pile of twisted metal. As he walked past, he stopped. His eyes narrowed. There it was again. A sound, a soft, weak sound. James turned. The sound came from under the metal plates. He knelt down, pulled out his knife, and started cutting through the wreckage. The sound came again, a small cry, like a voice. A girl's voice. Finally, after pulling away the last piece, James found a survival pod half buried in sand and ash. The glass was cracked. Inside was someone. No, something. A young alien girl. Her skin was blue, and her face had small glowing marks. Blood ran down the side of her face. Her eyes were closed. She was barely breathing. James stared at her. She looked so small, so broken. "Hey," he said softly. "Are you alive?" Her eyes opened slowly. They were bright purple and full of pain. Her lips moved. She whispered one word. "Help." James looked around. No one was watching. He knew what he should do. Report it. Call command. They'd come and take her away. Maybe even kill her, but something in her eyes stopped him. She wasn't a soldier. She was just a girl, hurt, alone, abandoned. He reached in and gently pulled her out. She was light, almost weightless. She didn't fight him. She just held onto his chest and whispered again, "Everyone left me." James swallowed hard. He couldn't leave her here. He wouldn't. He looked into her eyes. Not everyone. James took her to a small shelter near the cliffs. It was an old scout outpost, empty and hidden. He laid her on a cot and gave her water. She drank slowly, her hands shaking. "What's your name?" he asked. She blinked, confused. Then she touched her chest and said, "Syrah." "Syrah," he repeated. "I'm James." She nodded. Her voice was soft and cracked. "Why, you help me." James didn't know how to answer. He had killed aliens in this war. But this felt different. "You looked like you needed help," he said simply. She looked at him. "They said I was broken, no use, left me in pod to die." James clenched his jaw. "That's not right." She turned her face away. A single tear fell down her cheek. It glowed softly in the dark room. James sat beside her. He gave her some dried food, and she ate slowly. Her body was weak, but her eyes never left his. She didn't understand why he helped her, and maybe he didn't either. That night, James didn't sleep. He watched her breathe. Every now and then, she whimpered in her sleep. She was scared, even in dreams. When morning came, he walked outside to think. What if the others found out? What if command asked questions? Would they punish him? Would they hurt her? He looked up at the sky. Clouds moved slowly. The war had taken so much from both sides. Maybe it was time to start giving something back. He went back inside. Syrah looked at him, eyes wide. "Will you leave?" she asked. James shook his head. "No, I'm staying." Her lips trembled. For a moment, she looked like she might cry again. But instead, she reached out and took his hand. It was small, cold, but full of life. For the first time in many months, James felt something warm inside. His chest. Hope. But far away, beyond the mountains, a drone flew silently through the smoke. Its red eye blinked. It had seen the soldier and the alien girl, and it was already sending a signal back home. 3 days passed. Syrah, the alien girl, slept most of the time. Her body was still weak, but she was healing. James brought her food, water, and covered her in warm blankets. He said little. He stayed quiet, but always near. On the fourth night, she finally stood. Her steps were slow, unsure. Her blue fingers touched the cold wall of the shelter. She looked around. There were human tools, broken machines, and an old photo James with 2 other soldiers. Smiling, she touched the photo gently. "They, your people?" she asked. James looked up from the fire. "They were, not anymore." She tilted her head. "What happened?" He didn't answer right away. He stared into the fire like it was telling a story only he could hear. One died in battle. The other left the army. Sighed he couldn't do it anymore. He looked up at her. "Now I'm alone." Syrah sat down near him. Her eyes shimmered softly in the dark. "Me too." Silence fell between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of pain, of shared loss. Then she asked something that made James's chest tighten. "Why did you save me?" He looked at her. Her face was calm but serious. "I don't know," he said at first. But then added, "You were left to die. I couldn't walk away." Her eyes dropped. "They said I was broken," James frowned. "You're not broken." She looked at him again. "You don't even know what I am." He stood up and walked to the shelf. He pulled out a small scanner. "Then let's find out." He waved the scanner near her. Strange symbols appeared on the screen. Then something strange happened. The scanner beeped fast and loud. "Warning. Classified bioweapon code X47 status. Unstable danger. Level HEH." James froze. Syrah backed away. No, I didn't ask to be this." Her voice shook. Her eyes filled with fear. "I didn't choose it. They made me, trained me to fight and destroy. But I didn't want to hurt anyone." James looked at her. His heart pounded. She wasn't just an alien girl. She was made for war. Weapon. He should be scared. He should run. But he didn't. Instead, he turned off the scanner, walked to her slowly, and knelt. "You're not a weapon to me," he said. "You're just a girl who needs someone." Syrah's lips parted. She stared at him with wide, shaking eyes. No one had ever said that to her before. Ever. Suddenly, the shelter lights flickered. A loud beep echoed from James's wristband. He looked down. Motion detected. Surveillance drone. Human command. His eyes widened. "They found us." Syrah stood. "They'll take me. They'll kill me." "No," James said, pulling on his gear. "Not if I move fast." He grabbed a bag, stuffed it with supplies, and held out his hand to her. "Come with me." Syrah hesitated. Her legs trembled. Her voice cracked. "You'll be marked a traitor." James smiled softly. "Too late for that." She took his hand. They ran out into the night, into the cold desert wind, leaving the old shelter behind. Above, high in the sky, a drone blinked red. It had already sent the images to command. The human soldier was now a fugitive, and with him, the most dangerous secret of the war. The desert wind carried dust, silence, and danger. James and Syrah ran through the cracked wasteland, the moonlight casting long shadows behind them. Each footstep felt louder than it should. Each gust of wind felt like a whisper of warning. But the quiet didn't last. From behind a rocky hill, a mechanical screech echoed through the air. Then came the voice. "Stop, human soldier. Do not run." James spun around. 4 drones hovered in the sky, black, cold, and watching. Their lights scanned the ground, locking onto movement. Syrah froze. "They've sent hunters," she said, her voice trembling. "They don't miss." James pulled her behind a rock. He checked his blaster half-charge. No backup, no help. Just him and her. "They're not taking you," he whispered. "Even if they don't," Syrah said, "your people will punish you." James looked at her. "Let them try." He grabbed her hand again, and they sprinted through the rocks, heading for an old canyon path. Behind them, the drones gave chase. They reached a narrow cave by dawn. The rocks were sharp, the air inside was dry and cold. But it was shelter. James sealed the entrance with a metal plate. Sir, a shell sat down, her breathing heavy. You should leave me, she whispered. If they catch you, they'll call you a traitor. James sat beside her. Too late, I already am. She looked at him with wide eyes. Why? He leaned back against the stone wall and said, because you're not the enemy they said you were. You feel, you cry, you hope. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something he didn't expect. They didn't build me to feel. They built me to kill. James looked at her. But you do feel. That means you're more than what they made you. She closed her eyes, and for the first time, a small smile touched her lips. Then suddenly, boom. The cave wall cracked as a drone missile hit nearby. Dust and rocks flew through the air. They found us again. James shouted. He grabbed his blaster and pulled Sarah to her feet. We have to move. But before they could escape, one drone hovered at the cave entrance. A red laser locked onto Sarah's chest. Surrender the bioweapon. The machine ordered. Sarah's eyes filled with fear. But then, something changed. Her body began to glow. Her skin lit with soft blue light. Her eyes turned brighter. Her fingers pulsed with strange energy. Get behind me, she said. James didn't argue. He dropped behind a stone. Sarah stood tall, lifted. One glowing hand, and then unleashed a blast of energy straight at the drone. Boom! The drone exploded into fire and smoke. James stared in shock. How did you do that? Sarah looked at her hands, shaking. I don't know. I've never done it before. He stood slowly. You just saved us. But in the distance, more engines could be heard. Not drones this time. Human soldiers. Big ones. A gunship was landing nearby. James and Sarah were out of time. He looked at her. Can you run? She nodded, though her legs shook. Then let's go. Together, they ran into the rising sun, hunted by the very people James once called brothers, and feared by the ones who created Sarah. But they had something: no one could stop each other. Desert sky turned dark fast. Black clouds rolled in, swallowing the morning sun. Wind howled like a warning. Sand rose in sharp waves, stinging eyes and skin. A sandstorm was coming. James and Sarah stood at the edge of a deep canyon. Behind them, the roar of engines grew louder. Human gunships were closing in. Sarah looked at the storm. Her eyes shimmered with fear. We won't survive in that. James shook his head. If we stay here, we won't survive at all. The storm was dangerous, but the soldiers chasing them were worse. Without another word, James grabbed her hand and ran into the storm. The sand hit like needles. Wind screamed in their ears. They could barely see a few feet ahead. James pulled his scarf tighter over his face. Sarah stumbled beside him, coughing. Her energy was weak from using her powers earlier. But she kept going, holding on to James. Every step felt like a fight. Behind them, gunships circled, unable to land in the storm. Soldiers shouted over radios. Drones buzzed above, but the thick dust confused their sensors. Keep moving, James shouted. Just a little farther. They found a narrow path between two cliffs. Rocks shielded them from the worst of the wind. Sarah dropped to her knees, exhausted. I can't anymore. James knelt beside her. You've made it this far. Don't stop now. Tears mixed with the sand on her cheeks. Why do you care so much? James looked at her. Because someone has to. Then he reached into his bag and gave her a tiny energy pill meant for emergencies. Here, this will help. She took it with shaking hands. Suddenly, the rocks around them began to tremble. Boom! A drone fired a blast that hit the cliffside just above them. Rocks fell in chunks. One nearly crushed them both. They rolled down the slope and landed in a lower cave, dark and quiet. James groaned and sat up. His arm was bleeding. Syrah lay beside him, coughing but alive. "Are you okay?" he asked Dot. She nodded slowly. "Yes." She looked at his wound. "But you're not." He waved it off. "I've had worse." But she leaned forward, and her glowing hands hovered over the cut. Blue light poured from her palms. James gasped. The bleeding stopped. The skin slowly closed. She stared at her hands in disbelief. I healed you?" James looked at her, stunned. "Looks like your powers are growing." Syrah smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm not just a weapon after all." James smiled back, pain still in his eyes. Then came a faint voice from above. "Target locked. Send ground team." The cave shook again. They weren't safe yet. James stood, helping Syrah to her feet. "We keep moving. There's a place ahead. An old rebel hideout." Syrah looked up at him. "You're not afraid anymore." He looked into her glowing eyes. "I am, but not for me." They left the cave and disappeared into the storm, once more two figures lost in a world that no longer wanted either of them. But something new was growing in the storm. Trust, hope, and something stronger than both. A bond. Lightning lit the desert sky. For a second, everything was white. The cliffs, the sand, the broken world. Then darkness returned, heavy and endless. James and Syrah stood before a tall rock wall. From a distance, it looked like any other cliff. But James stepped forward and pressed his hand against a hidden panel. A soft click. Stone shifted. A hidden door opened with a hiss. "Come on," he said. "Sir." I followed him inside. It was dark. Cold, silent. They walked down a metal tunnel filled with dust and forgotten machines. Old lights flickered on as they passed, dim, orange, tired. "This place was a rebel base during the early war," James said. "Now it's empty, abandoned, like us." Syrah looked around. The place felt dead, but somehow safe. "I like it," she said. James smiled for the first time in days. They reached the main room. A large space with broken screens, sleeping cots, and a power core still humming faintly. James dropped his bag and finally let out a deep breath. "We'll rest here." Syrah sat down on a crate and looked around. Her eyes paused on something hanging on the wall, a cracked mirror. She stood slowly and walked toward it. For the first time, she really looked at herself. Blue skin, glowing veins, eyes that shimmered like stars. But also bruises. Scars. She touched the glass and whispered, "Is this what I really am?" James came up behind her. "No," he said gently. "You're more." Syrah turned. "They made me in a lab. Taught me only one thing, how to fight, how to kill. But I never wanted that." "You're not what they made you," James said. "You're what you choose to be now." She blinked slowly. "And what if I don't know what I am?" He sat down beside her. "Then we figure it out, together." Later that night, while James was fixing the power system, Syrah found an old data pad. She touched the screen, and it lit up with old messages. One message played a video. It showed a young alien child, crying, alone. She realized it was her. "This is Subject X-47, a cold voice said in the video. "Strong potential. Will be tested in real combat soon." Syrah's hands shook. She turned off the screen. She didn't want to remember. She wanted to be someone else, someone free. James looked up when he heard her crying. She wiped her face and sat beside him. "Tell me about Earth," she asked. He smiled gently. "It's messy, loud, but it has oceans, forests, music, people who love." Her voice was small. "I've never been loved." James paused. "Maybe now you will be." They sat together in silence, two broken souls in a forgotten place trying to heal. But outside the base, footsteps crunched on sand. Voices whispered. They weren't alone anymore. The hunters had caught up. The silence was sharp. Too sharp. James felt it first. A strange stillness in the air, like the world was holding its breath. Then the sound came, a soft metal click. A trap had been triggered. He stood quickly, blaster in hand, eyes scanning the dark hallway. Sierra froze. What is it? Before he could answer, bang. The steel door behind them slammed shut. Red lights flashed. Warning sirens screamed. James spun toward the entrance. The base was locking itself down. Someone had triggered the alarm. From the inside. And then he saw him. A man stepped out of the shadows, tall, armored, and wearing the same uniform James once did. Lieutenant Dane. James whispered. His old squad leader. Dane raised his weapon with cold eyes. You should have stayed dead in the field, Walker. Sierra backed away, her hands glowing faintly. James stepped in front of her. How did you find us? Dane smiled. You led us here. Every step, every signal. You were tracked the moment you touched that scanner. James clenched his fists. He remembered the moment he scanned Sierra's body. It had marked them. You used me, he growled. Dane shrugged. I used your guilt, your weakness. Then he aimed the gun at Sierra. She's dangerous. She's not a girl, Walker. She's a weapon. No, James said, standing firm. She's not what they made her. She's more. Dane scoffed. Don't be stupid. You think she loves you? She doesn't even understand what that means. James didn't move. Maybe she doesn't, but I do. For a second, everything was quiet. Then boom. An explosion rocked the room as Sierra's power flared. Blue light burst from her hands, throwing Dane backward. Sparks flew from the walls, but Dane was fast. He rolled, fired, and the blast hit James in the side. James dropped to the ground, groaning in pain. Nitrogen monoxide. Sierra screamed. Her eyes glowed bright. Her body shimmered. The air cracked with energy. I won't lose him. She shouted. She raised both hands. A wave of blue light exploded from her, ripping through the walls. Dane screamed as the blast hit him, throwing him into the metal beams behind. The lights shattered. Fire spread. Sparks fell from the ceiling. The base was breaking apart. Sierra ran to James, pulling him close. Stay with me. Please, he coughed, blood on his lips. I'm not leaving you. She held his face, her tears glowing. I can heal you. I have to. She pressed her hands to his wound. The light flowed again. This time it was stronger, clearer, like it knew what it had to do. James groaned as the pain faded. His breathing slowed. His eyes opened. You did it, he whispered. She smiled through tears. Because you believed in me. But the fire was growing fast. They had to leave. Sierra stood and helped him up. The base trembled behind them. Together, limping and holding onto each other, they walked through the smoke, leaving behind the man who betrayed them and the past that tried to break them both. The sun rose slowly over the blackened desert. Smoke curled into the sky behind them. The secret base was gone, buried under rubble and fire. The war had erased one more piece of the past. James and Sierra walked in silence. Each step was heavy. Each breath a quiet fight. James had one arm wrapped around her shoulders. Her small body helped carry his weight. They had nothing left. No food. No shelter. But they had each other, and that was enough. For now, they reached a small ridge just before noon. From there, the desert stretched wide and endless. But far, far in the distance, was a green line. A valley. With trees. And water. Sir, pointed, her voice soft. Is that real? James smiled weakly. Yeah, the Eden border. Neutral zone. No war there. Her eyes widened with hope. Can we live there? She asked. He looked at her, saw the faint glow in her face, and nodded. Yes, we can start. Over. She sat down beside him, watching the sky. For the first time in her life, no one was chasing her. No one calling her a weapon. No one locking her in a cage. She was free. James looked down at her. I was a soldier, he said. Trained to destroy the enemy. But they never told me what to do when the enemy cried for help. Sira smiled gently. And I was built to kill. But no one taught me what it feels like to be safe. They sat quietly for a long time. Then, Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. You saved me, she whispered. Jane shook his head. No, you saved yourself. I just didn't walk away. Suddenly, a soft sound came from the sky. They looked up. A small drone hovered above Old. Damaged, its red light blinking slowly, but this one didn't attack. It simply hovered, then projected a message. Subject X-47, status unknown. Signal lost, mission terminated. Then the drone turned and flew away. Sira blinked in surprise. They've stopped looking for me? James nodded. Maybe they finally realized. You're not theirs to control. She took a deep breath. For the first time, she didn't feel fear in her chest. She felt peace, and something else. Warmth. She reached out and gently held James's hand. I don't know what comes next, she said. He smiled. We figure it out. Together. They stood again, hand in hand, walking slowly toward the green valley far ahead. Behind them, the ashes of war faded into the wind. Ahead of them, a new life waited. Not perfect, not easy, but real and full of hope.